Every single person here's got a different story on how they got here, or where they came through. And
the technology I've seen this time is definitely better than last year. Like
the next 5 years is actually making sure that dealers are using what they bought, really start acquiring cars. But if you don't have the trade, where are you going to go?
When you put focus to it, it always creates better results.
And we put some commitment ad budget, some sort of social media strategy or something like that to be able, every single deal is an internet.
Compression will be worse this year than ever before. Because
and there's not one silver bullet or like one way to do it, as we've seen many times before.
If you're ready to start winning your business back, okay, let's make that first step.
Quantifying it, getting better data to actually test the performance. Product, if you want to call it a product, that dealers need to start investing in is.
Are you wasting your time and money on inefficiencies in the business? Are sales down and lead conversion rates are low? Are you having problems building or maintaining inventory levels? What does it really take to win in the automotive industry?
Get the cars that make sense for your store rather than just wishing at an auction, so it gives you that better control.
With over 25 years of experience, Darrell the Wolf Steed isn't just another industry voice. He's the guy who's out there solving real problems for dealers just like you.
They'll even say in the Pacific Northwest where you're at that it's a tougher market. It's, it's tougher to find cars. The market's a little bit softer. And in the midst of all this, your turn doubled and your profit's up 75%.
Yes.
The truth hurts only when it should. Are you ready to hear the truths? Darrell is here to unpack the hard truths and the proven strategies that will take your dealership from struggling to soaring. And he is taking it all in the streets, with real talk, open dialogue, unfiltered conversations. This is the podcast series, Street Smarts, powered by SmartWolf Consulting.
Okay, so we're here at NADA 2025. It's been the Planes, Trains, and Automobiles episode of every single person here's got a different story on how they got here, or where they came through. And but overall, I would say that this year was a success. It's a good sign of like the resilience of car dealers, the determination. It's no differently than in a recession, COVID. They're just very resilient, and everybody, nobody was like, I think I'm going to tap out. Everybody found a way to get here, and it was very cool, and a lot of innovative spirit.
No, I think it's true. I put a video when I saw people saying like, oh, there's all this stuff saying, hey guys, this is a great time for adversity. Like challenge it, because if you want to tell your people you need to do the hard work and everything else, this is time for you to kind of put in. What I've seen, if maybe there's a few less people, but what I've seen, the people that are here focused, and I've gotten a lot of contacts and everything else. And what is interesting is last year we talked about AI and EVs and buying centers. This year it's more focused about how to get acquisition in used cars, which has been great because it's no longer just saying a word. Now people are looking for those solutions because now they realize it's real.
I would add this on here. So at the end of the day, as us as vendor partners, there's not really a lot of stuff you can sell to dealers. They bought it all. They probably bought more than they need, and we've probably sold them more than they need. So really, the next 5 years is actually making sure that dealers are using what they bought, simplifying it, streamlining it, and making sure that they're getting value out of the existing products that they have, and figuring out what they're not using so that they can, start holding people accountable and actually really start acquiring cars, quantifying it, getting better data to actually test the performance. See you guys.
Yeah, it's funny when we were talking earlier. So I think all the studies that we've seen, and we could be wrong, maybe we're more likely right, is 2025 is going to be the hardest year we've seen in the last 4, because this is the pinnacle of where cars weren't made, they're coming back, and so we're missing a year of inventory. Now, the good news to that is that means 2026 is where cars come back in, we get to take a breath. But for 2025,
it's up a little
bit. Yeah, we're not like back to full scale, but now you have all these tools like you talked about, which is great, is now you can focus on, okay, we have the tools. Now we need to train and develop our people so that we can build for where we're going, right? And I saw a lot of that is like, okay, we need to get started now, or we need to do this, because if we're going to start to see the turn, we need to be ready for it. We can't wait till it happens and then get going. So that's been kind of promising in those conversations. The technology I've seen this time is definitely better than last year. Like you've seen people actually like listen to the, you can't just put something out there that's half baked, like it's actually kind of developed a little bit more.
Right.
So that's been really interesting on seeing that side of it, which is great. I think it's
And I
fantastic.
think the other product, if you want to call it a product, that dealers need to start investing in is going to be the staffing, the commitment, like in a buy center, like
Yep.
what you're doing is, okay, instead of us going to buy this XYZ widget and spending more money than we need to be spending, how about instead of the widget, we get some head count and we put some commitment in the ad budget, some sort of social media strategy or something like that to be able, that's really the next investment. Take it out of your, what do you call it, data processing or your outside services or what your marketing spend or whatever it is.
Yeah, and I think, well, that's a really interesting point. And I think I would want to drive home on this, that we're always looking, and not just in the auto industry, and just every industry is like, we're always trying to figure out how do we get there the fastest, the easiest, the least. And then we forget that at the end of the day, especially in the automotive industry, this is a people business. The interactive connection is, if we don't get the people and we don't put that investment in them, and then, like you said, head count to where we now start creating an experience, you're going to hope that the AI can take you there and then somehow it'll get better. You're going to hope, well, something else will come out that'll make it better. If you put it in now, you take 12 months and actually invest and build and everything else. It's like a startup. You get it going, and then by 2026 or middle of 2025, you're like, I'm there. And you're ready for the peak season.
Well, if you don't do that, CarMax, Carvana, all the public retailers, even and there's so many, a lot of innovative private cab dealers that I saw that are doing crazy things when it comes to vehicle acquisition, that it's going to be a tale of two cities. It already is, where you're either in the acquisition game or you're reacting to it, and you're either selling cars at the auction or you're forced to buy them at the auction.
Well, and it's funny you say that, like when we took out the VIN cap people and the people that are doing some interesting things. So we know the CarMaxes and Carvanas. Okay, we've got the gorilla and the elephant, right? They're out there. Now, the auto industry has an opportunity to take some of that business back. Not all of it, but some of it back if they get into it. But now you talk about all that noise of all the other stuff that's out there. Well, now if you don't make a serious commitment to it, it's not even a matter of you can try it, maybe, possibly, kind of do it. Is with all that noise, you won't even have an opportunity to get your foot in, because the noise is going to take up so much that you won't have a voice anymore, because you're already competing against two people that have figured out that is where the strategy is. You can take that back on a scale, but if you allow more noise to get there, they're going to be like, you're just more noise. You've got to like make a real commitment to that.
So you've got a lot of experience with buy centers, and from the outside looking in, I'm always talking to dealers and they're like, yeah, that's something we should do. Be nice to have, kind of like service drive acquisition. And that's something we're going to get to eventually someday, somewhere. You know, some days not really a day of the week, but if a dealer says to you, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take my existing staff and I'm going to utilize them. And I'm going to just do a round robin rotation to have them work these buy center leads and the service drive leads. What advice would you give them?
After I tried to keep my facial expression from a cringing type of motion, I would say, if that's the way you want to go, which I'm not saying it can't work, but keep in mind, we know two things to be true in the automotive industry and almost any industry. When you put focus to it, it always creates better results. So when I say, okay, I got a sales guy who's going to do 3 things, they're trying to divert their time. So I'd say, but if you're like, hey, that's the only way I can make this work because I don't want to bring on more staff or this, then you have to invest in training and education, because you've got to get these people, you've got to get them situated to where they can handle both conversations, because they're 2 very different conversations.
Here's a conversation I would have, and this is probably not the popular conversation. I would advise that they just decide not to even go down that road, spin their wheels, waste everybody's time, including all the associates that they're doing, and just do a pro forma for the year, forecasting lower PVR, shorter term time or longer term times, and just lower your expectations and kind of you wrap your mind around mediocrity and just forecast that out as the expectation, so you're not disappointed later on this year.
Well, no, I agree with you. I wouldn't want to do that, because we know what it takes. We know what we see. We know even when you have the right tools, like us, you with Accu-Trade, I'm a firm component of that because of the third-party validation and the ease of use. But even if I give you the Super Bowl playbook, which is what I would consider Accu-Trade right now, well, if you don't teach them how to read it, and then you give them 6 other things, they're not going to be it. So I would say, if you're going to do that, you better get into education and training. I would say absolutely not, because what I've seen is one person, start with one as a buyer, start with one in service, and let's get real. That's not going to get you there, but start with that and then evaluate where you go. Is crawl, walk, run. You don't need to go right into a sprint. Let's get one person in there and, okay, we know service operations can net you huge results. What if we could just get 6 this month? It's not 30 like you want, but if we got 6, now we could talk about what is the next person. And then if we get 10 purchases. It's not the 40 you want, but okay, now we know one got 10. How do we scale that, or how do we get efficient?
I talked to one of the sharpest fixed ops directors in the country,
Okay.
who's in your neck of the woods.
Yep.
And I think you know who I'm talking about probably. And I was talking to him. So we were just talking hypothetically, kind of like this. And as we came further down this rabbit hole, he's starting to connect the dots. And he's like, okay, I've got this data point. This, can you help me out with this? And one thing leads to another. And he just took it and just went, like, took the line and ran it out to sea. And as he coming back around, he goes, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to have my technicians appraise every single car.
Yep.
And he goes, and I'm going to pay them a 1/10 of an hour during their MPI to do it. They're going to scan it with the OBD. They're going to take the pictures. And that way, because it's going to be a complete Six Sigma, 100% of the time. He goes, I know it's not going to fail because I'm paying them to do it. They're not going to get paid unless it's done.
Yep.
So I can't wait to see what this guy does.
Well, not only that is now, if you have that, right? So now you have the consistency from that side. Now you really could have just one person that does the conversation or the BDC or the follow-up or whatever it may be, because they're not having to try to figure out all the pieces, right? You're not trying to overload one person with this. You're reallocating time, or you're allocating the right time to the operation as a focus.
Yeah, and there's not one silver bullet or like one way to do it, as we've seen many times before. But that's like a single back set with like 5 wideouts, right?
Yep.
To where it's not like you got to have an I formation or whatever. It's just a different way of doing it, where he's just throwing the ball all over the field.
Well, not only that is if it doesn't work the way he expects it to, because you always have a plan and then you get hit in the mouth and you're like, okay, was that the plan? But if it doesn't work, now he can say what didn't work about it and have a real conversation of what it is.
Yeah.
Now, what I also think is interesting about what we're seeing this year, and then what I see in the market is, I don't think anyone would make the argument. If they would, I would love to have just a conversation about it, is compression will be worse this year than ever before. Because of just the lack of cars, like people are going to pay up. And so, and I'm not talking about compression on your trades. I'm not talking about, but like when you're going to acquire cars from it. So if you're not looking at these strategies, service drive, private party, and increasing your trade efficiency or appraisal efficiency and trade capture, is when you look at that, it's like, if you're not doing that, then you have made a conscious decision. Or
can you tell me what appraisal efficiency and trade capture means? Yeah.
So appraisal efficiency, guys, is okay. Well, I just had this debate with people because we've heard this in different ways. Is appraisal efficiency is how many appraisals.
Let me hijack him one more time. So I speak all over the country. I'm talking in front of 50, 100 people, whatever. Every single time, without fail, I said, if you're in this room, you're a used car manager, and you have a 50% look to book, raise your hand. And the whole room will raise their hand. And then if I say, no, are you at a 50% trade capture? Leave your hand up. And they're like, what?
I don't even know what it is.
Right. Yeah. So now Darrell's going to.
So look to book, I will be the first one to say look to book serves no value for me. It's a skewed methodology, because look to book is a perfect analogy for every trade in that comes in. That's just a walk in and you put a trade in. Great. Look to book's fine. I'm going to look at my look to what came in my showroom. But unfortunately, every car that hits your lot is the potential of an acquisition or a trade. Service drive, sight unseen, showroom, buying center, but you would put those as purchase just so you have the so trade appraisal or appraisal efficiency is how many appraisals did you do, right? To how many cars you sold. So if you're saying, okay, we sold 100 cars, new and used, your appraisal efficiency, you want that as high as you can, 2 to 1, 3 to 1, 4. Why?
Well, let's just think about it. If you're presenting a sales menu, right?
Yep.
You're presenting it to whatever you're going to sell 100 cars. How many sales menus did you have to present?
Sure.
You had to present at least 100. Obviously, if you're the best closer on planet Earth. But we
know that's 30% close ratio on most sales.
Right.
So
you're 250 or whatever it is. Yep. So if you're putting 250 people on paper with a sales menu, how many of those should have a trade appraisal?
Well, one would hope more, right? So if you got to the 3 to 1, and we'll use 3 to 1 because that seems to be where everyone's aiming for, we're going to make the benchmark. If you did 300 appraisals, that's your service drive. That's all these sight unseen, everything. How do you not take in more trades? Leave that on the table. We'll talk about it in another session. Then you take your trade capture. Your trade capture really gets summed up as this. Whatever you sold, new and used, okay, is how many trades you should have taken in. That's a 1-to-1. How close do you get to that? Are you 0.7? Are you 0.5? But if you go like this, well, we took in 35 trades and we sold 100 cars. Yikes. Because how many of those did you give to the competition? So instead of looking at what you looked at and you said you took in, now we need to look at everything so we actually know what we missed. And that's what it comes down to, looking at capture and efficiency. Is if I know what I missed, I know where I need to make the tweaks so that I can improve. If I don't know what I missed, I don't know where I need to improve because I'm only putting the data in that makes me look good. And that's where it changed.
And if you're at a 50% look to book, that's great. But if you're not at a 200% appraisal efficiency, then you don't have enough looks.
Well, for instance, so one of the groups I work with, he said, well, we're doing really good this month. And it's funny you say 50%. I think they're at 48.5%. And so I said, there's only 42 appraisals in there because this is a store that we just got this ramped up for service drive. I said, what happens when we put in
purchase appraisals don't count.
Yep. And what if we put in 45 or 450 service appraisals? What's that number going to be? And he's like, oh my God, it'd be like 10%. Yeah, but then we would know where we missed it.
Or how, if there's that many sight unseen appraisals, which let's just think about this. I remember a time when we wouldn't count internet deals as a real deal, right? Because it only had a 10 or 15 or 20% closing ratio. And I don't want to mess up my 30 or 50% closing ratio in the showroom, right? So let's just not count those. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But that's what we do with look to book.
We don't want the sight unseen because we didn't see it.
Right. Well,
so we don't want to put it.
And it's not really real. It's a purchase appraisal because it's on an internet deal, which, I mean, today, let's just get real. Every single deal is an internet deal.
Every deal.
So to not count those is the most insane thing in the world. The second thing is the resources and the commitment. So as everybody's buying another widget, an AI tool, 50 grand for this or 50 more grand or 30 grand in SEO or SEM spend in order to get will buy your car leads. How about we figure out like an F&I internet? If you're going to get more leads, you're going to hire more salespeople, right?
One would think.
And if you want to get 100% of your customers to going into F&I to receive a interview 100% of the time, a menu 100% of the time, present 100% of the products 100% of the time, you can't have F&I managers doing 200 deliveries a month, right?
Yeah, it would be impossible.
So as you sell more cars, let's say 75 is my number. Everybody can debate about that. But if 75 deliveries per F&I manager is the number, if you go from 150 cars and you start growing, you're at 225, you add another F&I manager.
F&I guy.
So with used car managers, it doesn't really work like that. We say, well, you're not selling enough cars, so we can't afford another manager. Yeah, but we need to appraise this many more cars.
So we can get more.
Right. And now, since they're appraising so many cars, they can't confirm appointments. We're not going to hold them accountable on showroom traffic, calling, doing one-on-ones, doing, interviewing, spending enough time recruiting, developing, coaching, training, all the things that a manager is supposed to do. So instead, we're just going to tell them that we're okay with them half-assing an active appraisal with 100% of the time with all the customers. What if we staffed it the way we do with other things based on activity? And if we want to appraise 300 cars on a 300% or 500 cars, you're going to need more staff. Or you could always quit micromanaging and
use your people
and actually enable them, because on most everybody's service drive and most dealerships, they'll say, no, I'm not going to let these guys appraise cars. But you let a lot porter go around and do a walk around and take the pictures, measure the tread depth, check the battery, check the wipers, do all of these things, put it all into My Karma, X Time, whatever it is you're using a service drive. But that would be so crazy to pay $100,000 a year salesperson to do the same thing. Can't trust them to do that. The $15 an hour guy to do that. That's the insanity.
Well, I think, and it's funny you say that, because it's only the insanity, because here's where I think that disconnect is. I would trust the salespeople. I've also fashioned it to where you have an appraisal team for the buying center so that they do it, but because then it's efficient because there's a couple of people. But it's where we become an issue is the thing we see that's a problem is the managers. It's not even the salespeople. It's like, okay, if we train them and develop them, you got to do the training. It's like, what managers, coaches, leaders, whatever we want to call them in our store, are we going to hold them accountable to do their job, which is effectively manage and coach when it's not being done. And so now we have to ask more of our managers. And I know that's like saying something really crazy, but we don't have that level of accountability with them, which then tears down to the salespeople. So when I look at that, it's like, if we look at how we can get more cars, and I'll even put one out there for you guys, this will be like the holy shit moment of this. And you can think about this. If we know what MMR, Manheim, and all these auction prices are, and they're ridiculous right now, I think it's like an average of 94% of cost to market. I mean, it's insane. We haven't got into transport, safety, and everything else. What if, I know this is going to sound crazy, we gave everyone a highest and best offer, 94%, and I'm not saying do this, and then we said, but it needs an inspection, and we'll only deduct what we find on the car when it gets here. You're still beating the auction on a car you want.
Or how about we just don't try to hold back 20% on a sight unseen appraisal or 10% or say, hey, try them out here and see what happens. And then they kick the trade. If you just do what you're saying and then have confidence, because here's where it breaks down, because everybody will say, well, I don't know if they're going to all get an active appraisal. Well, that we don't tolerate that in F&I. Now we used to when we ran $800 a copy, $500 a copy. And then all of a sudden now to get $2,000, you can't do that.
No, you have to swing the bat every time.
Same thing when it comes to this. So if you're doing it 100% of the time with 100% of the customers on an active appraisal, validating that, and I know you're already in on this, but that is the under allowance.
It is. Well, and that's the thing is you have to be effective to the consistency of we're doing this every time. It's not a guideline, it's a process, which means it's black and white. And then when you're doing it, salespeople, buying team, appraising team, however you want to structure this is you're doing it the same way every single time. And if someone doesn't want to do it, we did this back in the old days. And I know what I'm about to say again, for the old school cats are going to be like, I love it. The new school cats are going to hate this guy is they don't want to do it. You just lost half a deal. Because I'm going to be 100% honest. You don't want to do your job. Cool. I'll have someone else do it. And they get a half a deal to go do an active walk around. And then lastly, the active walk around. So everyone understands with the Street Smarts Academy, I've put something in there that makes the active walk around even more supercharged. But the active walk around requires the customer be with you. So there's no conversation of this. You go look at it and do this. You have to have the customer with you. And that does not mean silent walk around. I want to make oddly clear about this is silent walk around and all you people who ruin this because you would touch the car and instead of just touching it, you would go like this, like, oh my God, are you okay? And
was anybody killed in the accident or hopefully everybody was okay?
So there's no more silent walk around. We are going to have a conversation with the consumer in a good way. Now, I personally have developed a walk around that is next level because it's all psychological based and it has 3 phases to it. And once you give this, salespeople don't ever have to manipulate something because they're empowered. And customers can't say no. But any version of an active walk around is better than you saying, let me go look at the car, come back, because then I'm left telling, I'm not left asking.
Oh, and you can't use the 3 most powerful words. You told me. You remember earlier, just like in an interview, when you told me this and we talked about this. Now, I'll close this down with one last huge phase of this. And this is what drives me insane about this business. And as I look at it now, and I'm with Cars Commerce, and I look at all the different things we can do from a marketing standpoint, harnessing the audience and all this stuff, and I look to see what CarMax, Carvana, and all these great retailers are doing, even great private cap retailers. Let's say that we were appraising 100 cars, you can get it to 200, 300 cars or 500 cars. That's amazing. But if you don't, and you're one of these stores like you're talking about that sells 100 cars and they appraise 80, which I see all the time. The question I would be asking those dealers is this. Let's think about the marketing strategy. The most efficient marketing spend is retargeting, remarketing. So if you don't have that pixel data, you don't have that PII because they didn't submit it on you did it on a yellow Post-it note instead of doing it on a true sight unseen appraisal where they put in their first name, last name, email address and mobile number, which that PII is also how you build a custom audience in Facebook. That's how you also build a custom audience with us that we can do a match back on people that are in the market to buy right now. So if you're not doing that, you're missing out on the most efficient spend. And you're also having a disjointed process because they still get the information. They get on Carvana.com and guess who's retargeting them? They are. And they're building them into their audience. And then they get into their garage and their value tracker. So now they're marketing to them more efficiently and more frequently than you are. And they know your customers based on that data better than you do. So you have to spend 2 to 3 times more than your advertising spend. That's not as efficient because the data is not clean. You can't do a save the deal meeting at the end of the month where you're like, hey, which is the most powerful way to follow up somebody. Hey, I want to talk to you about your trade because I think the trade value changed. Because what are the odds that after you went all in on a new car deal that you can, let's say it's a Stellantis store and there's no meat on the bone, where else are you going to go?
Yeah,
you've got 96 months, right? You got the trade, but if you don't have the trade, where are you going to go? Nowhere, and that's where the deal is going to go.
Okay, Brian Kramer with Cars Commerce. Okay, Darrell Steed with SmartWolf Consulting and Street Smarts. Is you really got to look at that used car acquisition strategy, and you've got to jump now. There's no time to sit there and think about it anymore. Is be in it, and like you said, I really tell everybody this. My trademark phrase is "the truth hurts only when it should," but we want to go one level today and go further and say this. Guys, really think about this and go like this. Every day when you guys are in your operations and you're not attacking these used cars in a more effective way, you have to then go home and say you were okay with losing because you're losing that business to either the CarMaxes, the Carvanas, your competitors. And you can see that in a lot of different tools is if you're ready to start winning your business back, okay, let's make that first step. Get into that used car game, have a conversation. Accu-Trade, I will tell you right now, you won't be disappointed if you're looking to build that acquisition strategy. But listen, NADA, this has been one of those things where we've actually got to see a lot of learning. Hope dealers got here, got fly home safe because the snow's finally melted. So that's great. And hey, guys, next year, 2026, we hope to see more successful stories. Okay. And until then, okay, thanks for being with us.